Hello, and welcome to Scuttlebutt, the War Movie Review podcast. We're happy to have you with us as we take a look at films from the dawn of cinema to today. We aim to provide a raw and unapologetic review of each film's cinematography, historical accuracy, and delivery. In the process of analysis, certain details will be revealed. These spoilers are only divulged to ensure a fair assessment of each film.
We head to Egypt this week with Enzo Monteleones' 2002 Second World War epic, Alamein, The Line of Fire. As always, I'm joined by Mike B.
Yep.
And Nate.
Dude, Italian dong, man.
Unfortunately, Michael was captured by the British this morning, so
Good for him.
his tale will never be told.
He did not successfully defend the propane fucking Beretta light machine gun with unlimited ammo with no reloads. But, you know,
Maybe
just
next
my
time.
2 cents.
This movie is horseshit. I'm just kidding.
It's a comedy show.
That's a fake
comedy
laugh.
show.
So what do you guys think?
Not bad.
It's not
It's
bad. Yeah.
it's actually a pretty good film, and I love the fact that it was from the Italian African, Italian and North Africa perspective, is because at this point, Alamein was like the nail in the coffin, big time for the Axis forces in North Africa when they were like, I think we're losing it. It's like Alamein, which they showed a little bit, but not really in this film, but it's kind of implied. But that was like, oh, we're actually completely fucked in North Africa. And that's when they started pulling back to Sicily and whatnot and into other MTO countries. But no, the fact that this was told from the Italian perspective, and they, when the main character, I guess the new guy, right? He's the main character. I forgot his name. Gets there. He sees all these guys that have been there for 2 years. And they're just like, who gives a fuck? Like, we just want to get the fuck out of here. And that is putting it very lightly to where the Italians were in North Africa by that point. They had been completely fucked. The Germans were fucked by their own guys, right? The Italians were not even considered by the Africa Corps. They were like, well, they can hold their own, And so it did show that very well. I did like that aspect of it. There was a lot of technical errors, I guess. Continuity was one of them, but it's plausible. We can talk about that in a little bit. But at certain points, it seemed to be going somewhere, and then it stopped going somewhere, and then it went somewhere again, like the storyline. But fairly forgivable, like as far as like a war film is concerned, fairly forgivable because that's how it kind of is, and that's what they wanted to get across. But yeah, overall, not bad at all. Nathaniel.
Yeah. I mean, like it's exactly how you said. Like, it's not like, like unbelievable, like holy crap. But like, I love the fact that this was even made to begin with. Like, and what I mean by that, I mean, like, I never would have thought. I knew this movie existed, but like I've never watched it, and I thought it was definitely a film I've always wanted to watch. I just never like knew enough about the subject. I never really knew kind of like North Africa to me is kind of foreign. Like, my realm is Normandy, June 44 on, mainly from US. And so like that's something that's always tickled my fancy, but I've never dived hard in to know what I'm kind of like looking at. But like, in terms of like the actual subject matter, I think it's really interesting. And I think the presentation of it is really well done considering it's 2002. So this is a year, probably was filmed more likely in 2001. And, I did not even think this was 2001. I thought this was like 2010 or something. I didn't realize it was 2002. So that was really impressive. I love the vehicles. I absolutely love Italian gun design and stuff because it's so fucking wacky and stupid. I mean,
80-20.
It's like, it's just the dumb. It's like anyone who takes just one look at like Italian vehicle and weapon design for World War II, it's like you would think they were just sniffing paint thinner. Like, it's just the dumbest fucking things in the world, but they worked somehow, and they were just really interesting because most of them were concepts that just never followed through past. So it's always very interesting. But I think it's unbelievable they even had those, the cars, the vehicles. It's really cool. I love that little jalopy that they go like down to the water in. Whatever that thing is, I fucking love that car. I was like, I want that. That's a really fucking cool design. But I mean, just talking about the film in general, though, like there are some, like Mike said, like continuity errors. I was not a fan of the combat. It felt very, I don't know. It just felt old. Like I don't know. That's a horrible way to describe it, but it just felt old, and it felt more like World War I tactics for the most part. But I love the setting. I love the desert. I love like all the shit that goes with this. It just feels like the story hit its mark a couple times, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed it. It didn't blow me away, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll leave it there for now. Brian.
Yeah, I can't really add too much more. I saw this film probably about 10 years ago through Netflix, of all places. And I remember this was a film that took me a long time to find. Back in the day, you would hear about films from people that saw them or like see trailers and stuff, and then some cases it would take a long time to find them. And this was one of those movies. And when I finally saw it, I really liked it. And then I didn't watch it for 10 years until this past week. And still holds up really well. I like it. This is in a lot of ways, the Italian Stalingrad. But rewatching it this time, I got a lot more Platoon vibes than anything. So it's a very interesting movie from a very interesting perspective. It's very well done. Yeah, and I get why you say it's old in a way, Nate, because 20 years ago was a long time ago. And it's a different style of filmmaking. It's a different... Technically, it's 2 decades ago for filmmaking. The aughts, because we're in the 20s now in a way. But, no, it's a great film overall. I really love it. And just to jump into it, start with vehicles. They did a very interesting thing with vehicles in this. All the Axis vehicles are awesome. I want that bike. That's a Moto Guzzi bike that they're on the whole time. I love it. I love every single inch of it. I love the dirt. I love the grime. I love the camouflage. I love that it doesn't work half the time. I love it. Like, they did such a good job with that. But with the Allied vehicles, they did a horrible...
Are you telling me they didn't have 113s in 1942?
And no, They actually didn't have M47 Walker Bulldogs either.
Shit.
The Allied...
Or they could have been M60s. I'm not sure yet. It was hard to tell, but it was definitely that 47-68 pattern.
Yeah.
The Ally stuff was really, blatantly bad.
It was atrocious.
Yeah. But they knew it was bad, and they did the best job they could with it.
Correct.
To hide it,
instead of making it into a post-war tank in the middle of the day, like, oh my God, this is a bad film. Now it's just a tank at night. They're trapped,
with a bunch of shit on it.
They did the best thing.
Yep.
Yeah, they're M3s, so have them stop a long way away, so maybe they might look like Brent carriers. Like, they did a very good job of what they had. And to touch on that as well, I think that's how they approached the fighting, because they didn't have a lot. Because if you don't have a lot, it's easy for it to look cheap, So you have to be economical with your filmmaking. And I think this whole film is just very economical with this filmmaking. Definitely got cut up on the editing room floor. It's like you said, it goes certain ways at certain points. But I think that was the whole approach. And that kind of explains the incrementalness of certain points, But that was also life in the desert, too, to a certain degree.
I think it's, to kind of like start out, like what grabbed me, it's like, you mentioned dirt and grime. Like Brian and I have been on a tear recently of just like thinking of like things that we wish were made more within, I guess, war film. And one of the main things I've always talked to Brian is North Africa. I want more fucking North Africa shit. I want more interpretation of that. And I think I knew, like I said, I knew this movie existed, but I didn't know it was fully in Italian. which made me just love it even more. I was like, holy
And it's
crap.
a German film, which is even cooler.
Right, yeah, like that's
Yep.
just so cool. And the funny thing is that I've seen these actors, some of them. The predominantly one was the guy is kind of like older. He's got more of a square jaw. He's in like Marco Polo and all the Italian movies and Italian TV shows. He speaks fluent English. So I love the fact that they went that natural route in that
Yes.
sense.
Yep.
And I will agree with you, Brian. The first time watching this was my first time watching this. It very much felt like Italian Stalingrad because we have just watched about a month ago, Stalingrad 93. And it did feel a little bit like that. And so I can understand your summarization of that from 10 years ago. I could totally understand that. This, I feel like it's its own nature now. It kind of felt kind of random in its editing, but it had more kind of like a higher power mentality kind of feel to it. Like more kind of it's Africa, like that, like Tunisia desert kind of thing. It was like, but I liked all of that. I even didn't mind seeing 4 Italian men flipping their dicks around on the sand, like hard cut clothing, hard cut dick. Like I was like, all right. I'm glad my kid's not in the room.
It's a European movie.
I know,
so,
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
gonna hang dong at some point.
yeah, that's true. Didn't expect it to be so hairy, but hey, Italians, so it's fine.
And I'm surprised this hasn't come up yet, but I'll bring it up now. Soundtrack. Oh my god, it's so good. I love the use of music, and I especially love the theme in this movie. Like it's enough. And that's really all you could say about it. It's there when you need it, and it's not there when you don't.
Exactly. Yeah, there wasn't a constant soundtrack. It was when there's a moment or there's a scene or a series of scenes where you need it. It's there, but it's not like overbearing. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Yep.
no,
Yep.
I thoroughly agree with it. It's like Stalingrad in that sense, although better sound mixing at this point in technology. It's not like Stalingrad
10 years later.
Right, yeah. Like you can tell. Like and we had that conversation I think when we did 93. It's like, we like that whole entire advancement from the late 80s sound editing. It's like, cuz even speaking of another Italian movie, what was that fucking World War I Italian movie?
Many wars ago.
Many wars ago.
Yeah, many wars ago. Yep.
Same problem. I mean, again, that was 70s, early 80s. Had horrendously loud music. But
Yep.
I was going to make the joke that they don't need to redub this for Italian audiences because it's already fucking Italian. So it's like, there. But I really did have that vibe with this movie for the combat. And I was going to mention that. And that's what I meant by old. I wanted to compare that to Many Wars Ago because it felt like Many Wars Ago. In its fucking bonsai charging fiascos, which
I agree.
And that's why I think I say old, because it feels like a World War I movie in terms of its bum rushing, attacking, and hand to hand combat stuff.
And some of that's true to an extent.
I don't mean
combat in
like
North
one
Africa?
for one. It's just,
No,
I feel like that's
Yeah,
that
just
kind
give me a
of
second.
movie.
Give me a second to like kind of
Yeah.
do this whole thought. Like part of that's true to an extent, but the way because I was expecting a lot better, I guess, in the combat because of the rest of the film. I was expecting better, and when the combat came, it was like you just said, it was old, and it was like, really?
Mhm.
I mean, like, what are we doing? The sound effects, everything, the fucking the editing, it was just weird. Brian.
Yeah, the combat was lacking, but I think this is a good point to detour a little bit and talk about the history. So at this point, the Italians, a little beforehand, they had Libya as a colony. And in the 30s, they had fought for, I forget the other name for it, but basically Ethiopia. There was another term, trans something.
Oh, it was basically the Horn of Africa with Ethiopia. Yes.
Yeah,
Yep,
Eastern Somaliland, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then war were declared, and the Italians were like, haha, fuck you, Egypt. We're going to drive to the Suez. And they drive into Egypt, and it goes great. They get to Alamein. This is 1940. And El Alamein is a railroad link. That's the furthest western link from Alexandria to Alexandria. Basically, it's the furthest western rail link. So they get there. It's great. Haha. Then the Brits do this great operation, I think Operation Compass, and wipe the fucking shit out of the Italians, push them all the way back, like 500-600 miles to Tripoli, to Tunisia, basically. And then Rommel shows up. And Rommel basically doesn't listen to the Italians the whole time. And he was just sent there to stabilize the front, make sure that they don't get into Tunisia. And then within 6 months, bam, he is back east of Tobruk in Libya proper, fucking up the Brits, And then in late 1941, the same thing happens. They have a counteroffensive, and they beat the fucking shit out of Rommel again. They push him out of Cyrenaica, almost back to where he started a year before. Then, in the spring of 42, he has another offensive, the El Ghazala offensive. Between May and June, he pushes all the way back to, guess where? El Alamein again.
And they had armor that time. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, because that's the whole thing. Because the further away that Rommel got from his supply lines, it was harder for him to hold the lines, and the easier it was for the British to build the supplies in Western Egypt, or the Western Desert, as they called it, and vice versa. So as they had the big advances in 41 and 40, or early 41 and late 41 for the Brits, the same thing happened. They didn't have supplies in Cyrenaica, and then they couldn't sustain it, whatever. So this happens in, summer to fall of 42, where basically the Axis are at the very extent of their supply lines. Think about it. Stalingrad is happening at this time. The Battle of the Atlantic is happening at this time. And the Germans are trying to hold this very thin line of 65 or 70 miles from the coast to the Guadalajara Depression, which is basically like this huge area of just dunes and quicksands.
Yep.
It's very impassable. You can pass it with vehicles, but it's not like an army. So that's where we are at the war. It's kind of the stagnated part of the front, very similar to, Stalingrad, because that late 42 period where the Axis were at their zenith and the Allies were just tipping the scales. October is very important. The second Battle of El Alamein happens in November, and that just, that's it.
They're fucked.
On top of Operation Torch.
Yep.
So you get El Alamein, Operation Torch, and you get the ring operation to Stalingrad. Bam, bam, bam. So
yeah, you're done. And they, the German High Command was like, Africa, yeah, okay, you got to do more with less. They constantly said that. Do more with less. And by this point, yeah, Stalingrad's going on, you're right. And by the second battle of El Alamein, it's like, we either hold this or we are fucked. And the Brits overrun it. Bam. They're fucked. And they also did this in Stalingrad too. The Germans blamed their allies. They blamed the Italians for Africa failing, like Egypt's, like that whole thing. Well, the Italians, if they would have just, done their fucking part, we could have held on longer. The Romanians, the Hungarians, the Italians on the Eastern Front, actually. Oh, if they would have just done their part, we could have actually fucking won that, whatever. No. Wrong. You guys sucked. You guys promised them to supply them with all of these fuel, food, water. Big thing they covered in the movie, water, which I really did appreciate. No, that never came. And they were always promised this shit by the Germans. Always. And the Italians said, yeah, if we get these things, we'll fight. We're going to be fine. Like we'll put up a fight. And they did, as proven from 40 to 43. And by 40, like late 40, so November of 42, basically 43, Africa's done. The Germans are done. The Italians are way fucked. And there's no way to get out. So that's why I'm kind of glad this film actually portrayed that of like, nobody's coming to save you and you're not getting out. So what do you do?
The only thing I disagree with you is that the North Africa campaign was traditionally an Italian campaign.
At the beginning.
Because they invited the Germans. So if you can blame anyone, any ally for failures, because it's the Italian Navy's fault to not keep the supply lines open.
Sure,
once you get to Europe,
they did overpromise, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Once you get to Europe proper, though, 100% right. You're the Romanians and the Hungarians at Stalingrad, 100%.
But that's a different battle. Let's just talk about North Africa. And
Well,
Yeah,
I know, but
so
it's just
there's
funny.
that.
Like North
Yeah.
Africa just has that funny caveat where it's like, if the Italian Navy did their job, then because by the end of it, they had the ships and they had the ability. This people were afraid. It was this corridor of death.
And then the
going
Italians
to
get
Tunisia.
fucked in 42, and their
Oh, yeah,
Mediterranean fleet's gone. But here, okay, so I
And
guess
they're not, and they never had their heart in the war as well after the 41 defeats.
Right, and so I
This
guess
is the
what
German
happened
war
was
to them.
The Italians overpromised, and then the Germans, when they realized okay things are bad, they overpromised to kind of correct for that huge loss of the entire mostly Italian fleet. The Mediterranean Italian fleet was pretty much fucked, even though they were the best, arguably in the MTO, like they were the best. They got fucked in 41 and 42, and then
The best special operations forces for sure. The Italian fucking naval
Yes.
special operations.
yeah, those guys are
all the
fucking
crazy
insane.
shit they did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Gibraltar.
Absolutely
and
nuts. And so,
Alexandria.
but so the Italians overpromised, then the Germans overpromised to overcorrect that. Didn't follow through. So it just became like this massive like Gordian knot of promises that could not be followed through with, and nobody was willing to admit that they were falling short. Neither the Germans nor the Italians. So yes, you could actually make the argument, and I'm not going to disagree with you on that the Italians were ultimately responsible for the massive defeat in North Africa. But the Germans had a big part to play in that because the ego thing
60-40. 60-40. But it's the only time where it's like, well, the Germans heavily relied on the Italian supply lines. Because vice versa.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's look at Greece. Same situation.
Oh,
The Germans
God,
didn't
yeah.
want to get involved, and they finally did. But the difference is that they can drive their supplies there. There's not an ocean there, and the Germans didn't have to commit
Correct.
their whole navy, which, by the way, at this point they didn't really have because of this whole country called Norway, which we kind of fucked up invading. Where all the German
Very,
destroyers.
very fucking stupid. Yes.
Yeah, they're all next to
I
these
call
really nice
it
glaciers.
their first Eastern Front. That's what I call Norway.
Yeah,
It was
nobody
a
talks about.
shitload of resources allocated for absolute minimal gain. They didn't
Protecting
gain
the Swedish, minor, basically. That was the
yeah,
idea.
but like the amount of resources they allocated for that, and I would argue too that like the same amount of like the percentage of resources they allocated to this tiny little shitty Scandinavian country, Norway. I love you. I'm not talking that you're all shitty. Jep for Norge, right? And
Insane
I'm not saying
resistance
that,
too.
I'm just
Crazy
saying
battles.
it was like a shitty little country that had no strategic advantage at that point, but they allocated all these goddamn resources. The Germans did. And they did the same thing in North Africa because, like you said, the Italians were almost like, yeah, we guarantee you a victory. It's easy here. Just come and help us. And then they get fucked up. And then the Germans are like, well, we're going to double down because we can't. No, they're our friends, man. Like, yeah. And
It's a very crazy, insane campaign, just with the distances
North Africa?
involved and everything. Yeah.
oh my
'Cause,
God,
like,
yeah.
And you think about it, like Dunkirk happens, and then the fight moves out of Europe. Like the Allies are expelled from Europe, literally. So the fight has to move somewhere else. And where does it move to? To the south. Starts in Eastern Africa and it works its way north. And it's just very interesting, just to see the progression. Because by December of 40 is when they have the really big British counteroffensive that knocks the shit out of the Italians in Libya. So it's just, this straight progression because people are like, oh, Dunkirk, oh, Battle of Britain. Then nothing. It's like, no.
No,
Everything
no.
just shifted. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yep,
What are we going to
exactly.
do? We can't invade Europe for a year or two. Okay, so continue the
And
fight.
here's the thing is like convincing the Americans to go and like put troops in North Africa at this point was fucking like, are you high? Like, what the fuck are you? No. Why is that
Vichy
important?
France was an ally. That was the thing. And FDR was so, well, I should say, no, that's right. FDR was so up Winston Churchill's ass in 42 at the moment that was a big reason that they were drawn into the fight.
No, I know that, but I'm saying before that, it's like trying to convince the United States to get involved with North Africa, like all the fighting in Europe.
yeah.
Okay, once they're expelled from Dunkirk, basically, like you said, to convince another power to come in to fight in some shithole in North Africa, why? No,
think
we're
it
not going to
was-
do that. And then
I forget
and then-
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, the British went down there and they were like, yeah, we got to fight the fucking Italians mainly at first, like you said. And they did. They kicked the fuck out of them. And then all of a sudden the the Deutsche Afrika Korps comes in there to reinforce them. Then shit gets really fucked up. Again, just condensing this into a very short, it's not going to be a 3-hour podcast. Like, I can't do that. But like, that's, and then all of a sudden, okay, American interest. Okay, Pearl Harbor happens. I still don't want to go to Africa. Why? What's there? Well, if we can get through Africa, we can get to the Middle East, what we call it now, that has oil. We just got to get past Egypt. Huh. Interesting. All right. Well, we'll think about it. Then it's like, but there had been all that fighting from 1940 on. And that's what this movie portrays. It's like these Italian soldiers had been there for 2 fucking years at this point. And they're like, what the fuck?
The plan was to meet up in southern Egypt.
Yes. Yep.
And like you said, the Americans, they didn't want to fight at all in North Africa, and there was a plan. I forget what it was called, but the first part of it in 42 in the spring was to bomb the shit out of occupied France, and in the fall to invade, and literally to like capture Calais by 1943, and then 43 to push towards Germany. And thank God the Brits talked us out of that, because if you look at all the failures that occurred in Operation Torch with the Americans, the American army wouldn't be what it was in Normandy if it didn't have the stumbling block that it had at Oran and Algiers and just, all these fights with just the French alone, not to mention the Germans. So it's very fascinating. And, it's people always say like, oh, the Russian front didn't matter. The Russians won the war with everything. American troops putting their boots on the ground in Algiers affects the fight Stalingrad.
Right, because then there's troops diverted from who would have gone to the Eastern Front to the MTO and then go up to Sicily. Okay, Italy is a hot box. It kind of stalls there, and then the Allies open up Normandy. And all it does is allocate troops, just like in the First World War. Once Russia pulls out, all these troops are allocated from the Eastern Front, and they can go fight on the Western Front. And oddly enough, we got involved at that time as well. But like, so it's all about like the movement and how many troops you've got to sustain these campaigns you're on in these certain regions. And by America, and I mean, okay, so we can't take credit away from the Great Britain at that point, because they had been stalling the fuck out of, and they've been draining the German, or the Axis, we'll just say, the Axis resources in North Africa since late 1940. They have been doing that. And okay,
because of Lend-Lease, thank God.
Right. And so if you allocate 2 divisions down there to go and fight in Africa, which nobody gives a fuck about, but it's idealistic to a sense, it's about resources and whatever you want to argue about that. But like, if you can do 2 divisions, that's 2 divisions less that are on the Eastern Front. And that's a huge fucking number. And that can take pressure off of certain parts. Yeah. And so that's kind of the whole point, I think. And yeah.
November 9th, 1942, 3/4 of the German transport fleet is moving German troops to Tunisia. 2 weeks later, the last 25% of them is sent to Stalingrad to start the air relief. You can't do everything at once.
No, you
Using
can't.
numbers from one front a year earlier, look at all these planes we have. A year later, oh, wow, we have, you're fucked. It just, you can't do it. And also at this point, the Brits, they were also at crisis mode early on. A lot of the units that fought in North Africa were these crazy amalgamations of like volunteers or a lot of Indian army troops. There were Poles. There were French Foreign Legion troops. You name it, they were there. Anzac was huge. New Zealanders were huge. And they even got pulled out after Pearl Harbor. A lot of those guys that were Tobruk and everything literally went back to Burma, like in 42. So that's a crazy story in its own. The desert for 2 years and then the jungle for 3.
But here's the thing is the Italians didn't get that respite. The Italians that were in North Africa were fucking there. They did not get pulled off to go to a different front. The Italians that went to the fight in Stalingrad were from Italy, and they shipped them by train to Stalingrad. The guys in North Africa, Italy kind of just basically, from what I've researched and understand, just said, yeah, keep fighting. And the supply was way down. And they were like, yeah, the Germans will supply you. Well, that didn't happen, right? It happened at first when they first got there. So the guys that have been in North Africa, the Italians, were ground to the fucking, if they survived, they were ground down to the point where they're just like, what the fuck is this even about? Like, why are we doing this? And I'm glad they showed that in this film. Like, the old guys are like, okay, so they're going to have, all right, get down. That one's close. That one's, okay, that one's really close. Get down. They know. They've been there. They understand what the hell's going on. To a T, like to an excruciating detail, they know what's going on. And these new guys that are going there are like, oh yeah, we're going to just, this could be a great cause. We're fighting for Italy and blah, blah, blah. And then they realize, what the fuck are we doing here?
The urban vigilantes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Little bits of slang, but no, it's like North Africa in a lot of ways at this point was like the worst points of the Eastern Front you don't hear about at this point, like Rjev, like the meat grinders. It's just attritional warfare at its worst. At the end of a very long supply line that they can barely keep up with. Is that good water?
It's the First World War.
Is that good water? You know?
Yeah, it's the First World War in World War II in Africa, Northern Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just horse shit. And yeah, it's like, how the fuck do you sustain that? You can't.
Draw a line in the desert. And they tried to do it 3 times.
Yep.
The Axis and the Allies in 2 years. And it didn't work. Until the Americans showed up. No.
Yeah, sounds familiar, right? Like, North African combat, from what I've researched, is on all sides. Like the Brits, the Allies and the Axis, all the soldiers all said the same thing. It was endless, fucking countless miles of nothing and a shitload of violence, bloodshed, and nobody ever knew why.
There was also a lot of humanity in the desert, though, people mention, because nobody wanted to be there. Because it wasn't a European country. It wasn't like you're driving through somebody's grandmother's garden and through their house and, oh, whoops, there's the neighbor's kids. Nothing is there, and nobody is from there. So it's like there was just a lot of things that happened in North Africa that were funny. It was veterans remember it as like this funny time, and that's just for like the Western Desert. That is a lot of the American troops that fought in Tunisia, like for example, some guys in the 9th and the 1st ID. After it, like the guys that fought in Normandy and Sicily and all the way through like the Hurkid Forest were like some of the worst battles they ever fought for the whole war were in Tunisia. Like Kasserine or Telsy-sur-Mer, I think is the other one that was very big. But like, just fucking bloodbaths. And yeah, it was just these periods of calm and nothing going on. Oh, I'm going to, take a sand bath. And then bam, all this other shit going on. I wanted to ask you a question, Mike, because you're the only person here who has lived in desert-like conditions for very long periods of time. How did you like that, life? They tried to depict it with certain things. Like they talk about scorpions and
they did it as well as they probably could, because living in a desert fucking sucks. It's dry as fuck. It's hot. It's windy most of the time because there's nothing to break the wind, right? And in the daytime, it's boiling hot. There's sand and dust everywhere. The only thing that I would critique is that there should have been more dust on everything. But that's a small detail, and like it's very hard to do on a set. I get that. So I'm not gonna like go further and bitch at them about that.
You would have been Anakin's worst nightmare. Jesus.
I hate sand.
Well, it's in the desert. It's the powder.
Yeah.
There's sand, yes, but like it's the powder that like it literally gets in and on everything. Like your face is constantly coated in it. Like it's everything you have, whatever you move, there's just dust and shit falling off of it, right? Okay. So that part they tried to get it right and they got fairly close, but it's really hard. Like because I know how to like, when you're producing a movie and like directing it and all that shit, you can only do so much and so many takes and everything like that. So I get that, but like, yes. As far as like them bitching about how fucking cold it is at night, yes, that is accurate because so your body does get used to say 100, we'll just say 120 degrees during the day. right? Your body gets used to that. After like a week or so, you're acclimated to 120 degrees during the day. It's hot, but like your body's like, okay, I can deal with this. My blood is thin. But at night, it drops down to 80 degrees. That's a 40-degree difference. That's a pretty big fucking difference, right? And you literally feel like you're freezing to death at night, and it's 80 degrees. And I love the fact in this film that they actually were putting their ponchos and their greatcoats on and shit, or their overcoats on, and like they were still cold, and they're like, God, it's so fucking cold. Yes, it is. Absolutely. In a desert, that's how it is. Desert is one of the most inhospitable, unforgiving environments I think humans can be in.
The number one requested item from soldiers in the Deutsche Afrika Korps to quartermasters and to family members at home were overcoats.
Yes.
It was so cold at night. Guys were like, oh my God. And they had like you watch the Die Deutsche Wochenschau and it's like, crack an egg, Hans, and let's cook during the day.
Yep.
And at night, like they literally made a tropical overcoat that's a different shade. It's like a very dark brown shade.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd wear them in the desert because it was so cold at night. And just a funny side note, you see those pop up at the very tail end of the war too at huge numbers because they were opening up all the outposts. So that's an awesome look. But
yeah, it's
fucking cold.
Desert environment is, I don't know. I told the Iraqis when I was there, I was like, I don't know how the fuck you guys have been living here for this long. Like, Jesus Christ, like it's not good. Desert in general, it's fucking insane to me. And they got a lot of that right. Because it's so dry in a desert, even at night, if I would to be in charge of like, I don't know, okay, I guess makeup. That'd be makeup, costume/makeup. But makeup should have had their lips really chapped. Because my lips were always chapped. All my friends' lips were very chapped when we were in Iraq because it's so fucking dry. It's like your lips are always chapped. They're always sunburned. And they didn't have that in this film. And most films don't. If they take place in desert, they don't. That's one little detail that I would have loved to seen in this film because they got a bunch of the other aspects, right? But you can't win them all. You can't do everything. But yeah, to answer your question, which I just did, desert environment fucking sucks. And they got about 75% of the way there of explaining how bad it sucks in this film.
Yeah, because I was thinking about that as I watched it. Because I've personally never been to a desert. I've flown over them. I just never, even in the States, I've just never been to the giant orange killing engine.
Yeah, it's a weird environment. It really is.
Yeah.
And
This is interesting.
I think the closest I've ever been to a desert would have been like Kitty Hawk, and that's not even a fucking desert.
Oh, that's far from a desert.
Yeah,
that's,
and like that's but
yeah.
like if sand is the context for a desert,
no, sand is a it's a part of a desert.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like in my personal experience, that's the closest I've been to like like a sand dune in a desert is like Kitty Hawk. It's nowhere. It's not even near.
I've been to Daytona Beach.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for the race.
That's like saying I went to the coast of Florida. I've been in the desert, but there's fucking dunes, man. Like,
there's a really big North Africa front reenactment in Texas, of all places.
I really want to go to that one.
Parts of Texas
really want to go to that one.
You can do it because, like, it's the I presume it's the western part.
Yeah.
Kind of by El Paso, because like I mobilized through El Paso.
I think it's right outside of El Paso, and they have like giant dunes. Yeah,
my buddy flew there, and he's like, then it was an 8-hour car ride, so it was like really out there.
So that's where we were before we deployed, and they got us used to. Like,
there's a lot of training out there.
We were at Camp McGregor in New Mexico. We were at Fort Bliss, but then we went up there. But like it's within about 40 miles. What?
Did you find Pancho Villa?
No, he was long dead, thank God.
I know, but that's the old patrol bases though. They used to have along the border.
No, I know, at Columbus,
old cavalry guys,
Texas. Yeah. It was funny because like we went, we're in the 32nd patch. We went where the guys in the 32nd went right before they got
in the excursion.
In 1916. Yeah.
So
it's funny as shit. But like no, that is it's a desert for sure, obviously, and it's a mild desert compared to like the Middle East. or I've never been to North Africa, so I don't know. But like, so the desert in Western Texas is windy. It's very sandy. There's not a lot of dust. It's not enough or not enough dust to compare it to like the Middle Eastern deserts. There is, but it's like
Isn't it like
it's
more white than it is for
no. It's
Mojave?
the Mojave is it's very red.
Okay.
And from the guys that I've talked to that have been there in Western Texas, it's very red. White Sands is in New Mexico. It's about, I don't know, an hour and a half north of where I was at. I did go to White Sands. It's fucking awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's like this little.
That's where Trinity is, right? Or
Trinity was
Los Alamos.
No, Trinity was in Nevada.
I thought
right.
I thought White Sands was part of that same.
Trinity is Los
complex.
Alamos.
Okay.
Los Alamos, is that in New Mexico?
Yes.
What part? Can you Google that really quick?
Yeah.
What part of New Mexico? Because
I thought White Sands was all part of it.
No,
Yeah.
White Sands is a naturally occurring.
Part of it is a base, is a range.
Sure, yes, but like I don't know if they tested nukes there, but anyway, we went there. But it's a very isolated area of like where the sand is white. The rest of it's mostly red, and it's like a desert. And then when you get to the Middle East, it's mostly tan, like you would think of, right? It's mostly
Los Alamos is north center of New Mexico, by the way.
okay, north center. Yeah, so it's far away from where I
And
was
where's
at.
White? Okay, interesting.
White Sands is south center.
So there's two. Okay, well I think one's a missile base. The other one must be the nuke one.
No, White Sands is they've got some shit out there. I just don't ever think it was a nuclear testing site.
White Sands National Park is in the center of New Mexico.
Because there's this they found this like set of ancient tracks through a mud bed, and half of it was on like a fucking shooting range, and the other half was like on national land. But I'm pretty sure it's a missile. It doesn't matter. I just whatever.
No, I know there's some military shit around there. I just don't know if it was a nuke test site. But anyway, but yeah, desert as far as it was portrayed in the film, it looked like from what I've researched and all that stuff, like the very rocky desert of North Africa. And some of it's just plain sand. It's sand in the horizon. A lot of it's rocky as shit, as a lot of the veterans wrote about and all that stuff. And so in this one, they dig a fucking trench into this like hillside, and they're just like, this sucks. It's dry. It's shitty to dig through, but it's cover.
It's insane because it was very rocky, like you said, where they were. Because there's like a little ridge in the western part of Egypt. They travels there, and it kind of goes like Sidi Bouzidi and eastern Cyrenaica kind of. But as you get more towards the Guadalajara Depression, it also gets very rocky, and that's one of the reasons it's so impassable, because it's like quicksand with rocks and stuff. It was very cool to see, because you think of the dunes and you think of like the Dune the movie, like, oh, that's the desert, but it's not true. Like with the scene where they find the cave paintings, I thought that was really cool.
Yes, yeah, the old school, very old. It's like, yeah. Some person was here hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of years ago, and just decided to carve shit into this same rock that we're at. I thought it was awesome. I love that scene.
The Romans had patrol bases in the southern Libyan mountains that you can still go and find Roman graffiti at from like, the different centuries.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking crazy, middle of the desert of nowhere. And it's like some Roman guy from northern Italy or Gaul or whatever fucking just wrote shit on this rock in Libya, in the desert. It's been here. It's just crazy, So that was a really awesome, nice touch.
Yep, I love that.
On top of that, I love the artillery in the horizon. I know that's been done before, and that reminded me of SPR in a way, but it was very well done.
No, but that's actually how artillery looks at night and shit. Yeah. Like it looks like lightning flashes, and then you got about 45 seconds until it lands. But like, yeah, that was cool too. Yeah, there's a lot of really good details and things they put into this movie that made it very good.
Lot of cool.
The Italian paratroopers, that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
The practical effects won me a hell of a lot over. The whole, like, I wonder how they did all those artillery lights. I'm guessing just something far away flashing.
I don't know, because it looked very.
Yeah.
It didn't look very fake. I don't, for lack of a better word.
I think it's a thing that was set up across the desert, and they're just like, all right, on we go. They're just in a random sequence. And
just really, really bright fucking spotlights. Just bam, bam, pop, pop.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. You can
Yeah,
reflect
you could, but like
spotlights off.
that costs a lot of money though.
So
and it's like,
well, you just said that, so I wanted to kind of launch, and that's why I've been kind of quiet because I've been trying to figure out what the fuck I could find this information.
and also we've been kind of talking over you. I'm sorry.
Well,
man.
no, you're fine. It's the thing was that
We stayed in the Western Desert, though.
yeah.
So when the North Koreans ended up in Vietnam,
So the budget. I've only found two articles after almost looking for like 20 minutes of trying to find the budget of this. It says 9.9 million,
Okay.
and I guess, but then I was trying to find the income from it because we've always compared it to other things, and so far the only things I've been able to find is only made $956,000.
Huh.
I see that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I see it too.
Yeah, me too.
But like I'm trying because it's the same kind of trend I think Stalingrad was in that sense. But I was looking. I've been trying to find it, but yeah, it looks like it only made like close to $1 million, and
So like 10% back.
yeah,
basically.
it was interesting though because I was looking up, trying to make sure I was reading this correctly. So I looked up Italian box office in 2002, and it was behind K-19 Widowmaker and My Big Fat Greek
God.
Wedding and The Bourne Identity and The
Well,
Pianist.
of course it is. Yeah.
And like a lot of really good, well-known pop culture movies. So it's interesting, Brian.
Prestige movies or legacy movies never do well. Look at the Pacific. It lost so much money. It's great, and I'm glad it exists, but just, these types of things are not good financial, endeavors. And this one is very true to the history.
Yes.
It doesn't go far away at all, which is why I love it. I think it's awesome. But there's no love interest. There's no crazy fucking stupid
There's no
shit.
Pearl Harbor Saving Private Ryan fucking storyline. Yeah.
It's guys in a desert sucking.
And then just miserable. Yeah.
And that's what makes it great, but that also hurts it. So I could see why, it wouldn't have the best return. It's also interesting, too, to note that when I looked up when it was made, I was like, oh, shit, that's 60 years. So they hit the 60th anniversary of the battle. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I get why they only made 10% back, like you just said, is it's not like a legacy. It's not like a fucking people here's the thing is people get bored with movies that don't have constant action. They want to be entertained, they don't want to think, right?
There is not constant action in this movie, and we can go into that a little later.
And it's if you want to just see constant action and not think, well, the fucking big box office, million.
Pearl Harbor was made a year before that. Go watch that.
Right. I understand it. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but I understand it. And it doesn't surprise me that this made that little in the box office. And again, it's not like other certain films that we recently reviewed, where I was like, yeah, well, I'm surprised it made that much. But like,
it made more than $35,000. So there you go.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Right. I wasn't naming any films or anything like that, but yeah. No, but it is a film that's made for guys like us, right? We're nerds and we don't make up that much of the population.
No, there was yeah. Well, it was funny. Like there was one of the few times I actually agreed with someone on the fucking war movie review forums. He was like, they don't make, if we keep, they make these movies only if we keep going to go see it. And I thought that was very true.
It is. Yeah.
It's like you don't want it to be like that, but it really is. Like, if it's not us nerds like reviewing and wanting to watch it constantly, they're not going to make it because, unfortunately, the demographic of the world does not watch these films. They watch Marvel.
They want to see action. They want to see. Yeah. They want to see Saving Private Ryan is what they want to see.
Yeah, and so do I to a certain extent, but not every single fucking time.
Well, we all do. We're all fucking nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so that's why I get why it didn't make as much as I think it was worth, but it's just the reality of things.
Yeah.
And because it's a very well done film, and its shortcomings are not that bad. But yeah, go ahead, Brian.
It's a real travesty too, because yes, it's not everyone's cup of tea for sure. like, oh, I want to see Italians die in a desert. They shouldn't be in the first place. Yay. But it's like the magic of this film is in the small moments. It's all about these like little interactions, which is just great filmmaking. It's just really good filmmaking with an obscure subject. And
the writing was not bad at all.
Not at all. There was not a single cheesy fucking line of dialogue. That could also be the language barrier, but it for me because
good translation.
Yeah, yeah. Like it just it could be cheesy in Italian, but I don't know fucking Italian, so here we are. So
well, I think the subtitles are pretty close.
The copy we were watching, which I'll put a link in the description when this comes out. For the link that we used because it's on YouTube. But
yep. It's like even if it was like a little bit off, the translation itself, it's still the writing was not bad at all. It was believable shit that guys are going to be saying to each other.
Right. It wasn't like
how they're saying it. Yeah.
It wasn't like the horrible thing where YouTube there's actual real subtitles loaded into YouTube versus YouTube trying to make Italian sound English where you come fuck me daddy or whatever the fuck it was last time.
Yep.
Yeah. It was something weird like that, Brian. Don't give me that face. It's on record somewhere on one of the things. Anyway.
I really, and we'll get into it in a moment, hopefully, I really want to get an F41 at Carcano after watching this. I've wanted one for a while, but
that's
I really
probably
like
my
them.
favorite variant of the.
They're getting more and more
rifle.
expensive, man.
They're just nice. They're very nice. I know. They're so great, and
that was part of the continuity as well as switching between, which could have been feasible. He could have been like, I don't want to carry the rifle. I want to carry the infantry short rifle at a certain point.
I know we're going to save it to the end for IMFTV. I was very happy to see a Beretta 30.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
My PP went soft when it shot out flame more than a flamethrower.
Well, yes.
Never reloaded.
Those Italian paratrooper helmets, that whole sequence is really cool.
Yeah. I loved the gear. I loved the outfits. I loved the fucking short shorts. Like, that shit was fucking fire. The fucking vehicles.
Yep.
The story wasn't terrible. The dialogue was pretty great. The sets were amazing.
The sets were fucking
It's
fantastic.
just, again...
The flies. I wrote that in my notes.
Yes.
The flies.
Yeah. That
was really cool touch.
That is also very accurate for the desert. These flies, they're big, hot, and pissed off. Like every fucking living thing in the desert. And they're ravenous.
I am
and they
soloing that. That's fucking big, hot, and pissed off.
That's everything in the fucking desert because it never dies.
I know, but if you take
it never dies. It just gets.
Take that out of context. It's amazing. I'm gonna do that.
Oh, you're big and bold. You're big, hot, and pissed off.
Use it however you want.
You cannot fuck other men unless I authorize it.
You are not allowed to have gay sex with other men unless I authorize it. Yeah.
I gotta update our intro. Maybe I'm just gonna make something ridiculous.
just shit like that. But no, on a serious note, the flies were fucking fantastic because they're so, you get used to them to an extent, like they did in this film where they're like you're like, how the fuck can you got them on your eyes, you've got them everywhere. Like how can you just like eat food and there's flies everywhere and there's dead shit. It's like, you get used to them after a while and you start tuning them out. And then it gets to a threshold where you're like, I can't fucking do this. And you start like flipping out and shit. And you're like, guys, fucking flies. How do we get rid of them? You don't. Dude, you could be in the middle of the fucking desert. No water for fucking miles. No anything, no dead carcass, no nothing. There'll be flies there to fuck you over. There'll be flies. They'd live, I don't know how, these fucking things. And I'm like, okay, so you're like the cockroaches of the desert. Because even cockroaches don't live in the fucking desert. But the flies are always there. They're always fucking there. And they're always on you. They're like, oh, cool, free meal. No, my tear ducts do not constitute a free fucking meal. Get the fuck out of my eyes. They're always fucking there. And they're always aggressive. Like, usually, sometimes in the United States, you can swat at flies and they'll go away, right? No, in the desert, you swat at them, they go, okay, challenge accepted, bitch. And you're like, okay, go, fuck. There was, oh my God. I'm glad I didn't have a GoPro while I was there because most of the time is swatting flies away. I'm like, get off my goddamn food. No, do this. And sometimes we just ate food and we're like, oh, the flies are on there. I guess I get AIDS now. Fuck it. I mean, I guess we're fucked anyway. So whatever, protein, I guess, right? Whatever dumpster they were just fucking sifting through and eating rotten shit out of. Now it's on my food and I'm going to consume this. Hopefully I get to go home because fuck this place, right? That's life in a desert.
Let all that trauma out, man.
No, the flies are fucking unbearable.
Every single veteran in World War II or today for desert campaigns talks about the black flies and how fucking
Yes,
horrible
they
are.
bite too. They bite.
Horribly, yeah.
That's the thing is like, okay, so these fucking things
Big,
they get
fat, and pissed off.
yes, they get into your eyes and then they'll start biting your they're like deer flies. They're not horse flies 'cause they're not that big, right? They're big, but they're not it's hard to explain. But the black flies, they're super fast. And they're like the fucking
We unlocked core memory here, Nate.
I know.
no, the flies, trust me, that's a little thing that, yes, it is unlocked. The flies were fucking awful. Like the worst I've ever fucking experienced in my life. I've been to shitty parts of the US and they're like, yeah, man, watch the flies. And I'm like, yeah, not as bad as the desert. Trust me. They're not as aggressive.
I don't know. It probably doesn't hold a candle to that, but Sean and I had that with the car pulling out of the site for combat camera, where we literally had, I'm not joking, like 300 flies, because everyone had abandoned camp. It was only just me and Sean packing the tent away, and it was all the mess hall stuff that they had just dumped in the field.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Yep.
So it was like I had a little bit of, I had a Rice Krispie packet that I'd eaten, but the Rice Krispie was like, the wrapper was there. I'm not joking, and Sean can attest this. There must have been 300 flies in the car. Like, I couldn't hear anything. I was like, Sean, we gotta fucking go. And he's like, what? And it's like, I literally had to roll all the windows down and drive at 60 miles an hour to suck the majority of them out of the car.
I remember you got back to the Airbnb and you were just like,
the fucking flies.
They were everywhere. And even when I was unpacking the car 4 days later, I was finding flies flying out of bags.
Yeah. No, that's how it is. Like, dude,
I had
it's
completely
insane,
transported an Ohioan fly to Maryland. So it's like,
well, it's the same continent.
Yeah.
Customs can't get you.
yeah.
But I mean, okay, so imagine, Nate, those flies are all in there and they bite.
Now, thankfully,
All of
those
them.
flies were not biting. They were just annoying. Being a
Right.
sailor in the bay, you get black flies.
They bite. Yes.
They bite like because they get into the cockpit and you're fucking sitting there and they fucking bite your ankles and you try to slap them and they're so fucking fast compared to everything else.
There
And
you
it's just,
go.
Oh, they suck. They suck so much.
That's how in living in the desert is you've got flies constantly.
Down in the East Coast desert, North Carolina, apparently, the black flies are everywhere.
down in the deserts of Kitty Hawk.
They're nasty. They're fucking
Get
disgusting.
bombed by the Ohio and Wright brothers.
In this film, they actually got that right. And when they started ignoring them and just like moving about their business, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Somebody that advised this film has been in the desert, or they just were, and they were like, fuck it.
I know in Australia the flies are bad, so they have the Aussie salute because you're constantly doing this, waving away, brushing away the flies.
Oh,
and everything.
dude, yeah,
You know?
the Aussie salute. Yeah,
Aussie
it's cute.
salute. I love that.
Yeah. And that eventually carried over to the Marines of the Pacific, and they would say, like, 3 days after the battle or after the invasion, that's when the flies really came out.
I can't even imagine that.
And then after that, it
fuck.
was like Tarawa was just horrible. Like the battle was horrible. It was like 3 days of hell and 3 days or 4 days of just like charnel house cleanup.
So imagine you guys, we're all talking right now, right? In a desert or like in a shithole like Terra. No. It's not even that. I'm going to get really visceral.
It's like being in a cheap kung fu movie.
No. I'm going to get even worse than that. It's you and I are sitting here talking face to face, all three of us, right? And we're sitting there talking and we go, yeah, so the other day, you're constantly spitting them out of your fucking mouth. And once in a while you'll be talking and you'll crunch one. You'll hear it. You'll feel it. And you just go, oh, hopefully there wasn't any blood on that fucker from the dumpster or the dead body or whatever. It's like
The mosquitoes were pretty bad and annoying at combat camera. I mean, obviously they're not like that, but it was a bit annoying. But so I had my mosquito net luckily, And I remember when like, dawn came and we're all good. Sam just had a horrible night sleeping. He was next to Cooper. He got ate the fuck up by bugs. He just saw me with my mosquito net on. He's like, "Fuck you!"
It's on camera,
and it's just
too.
like, yeah, it's on camera too. But it's like, it's funny like when you have those little things that get you away from like the little annoying things at night, like the bugs or whatever, and then your buddies just let you know how much they love you about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just, they did that very well in this film. I loved all the flies. I don't know. Those are probably just legit flies that just showed up because that's what they do in the
100%.
desert. When they were on set, they're probably just like the flies were like, oh, there's activity around here. Oh, let's just all swarm them.
Belloc in Indiana Jones, he eats a fly out of the corner of his mouth when he's in the middle of a take.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's desert, same area.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I was saying. When we're talking, we'd be like,
yeah.
Yep.
Although I think that's in California, but still, it's the desert. Like
a desert.
Yeah.
A desert is a desert is a desert.
Exactly.
And they all suck.
Brian, go ahead.
So I really only have one more point, and then we can head to IMFDB.
Yeah.
Is, this film has a few different parts. Really, let's say 3 parts. Like getting to the front, really, getting used to the front. Like, when they take the vacation and they go to the beach. And then, as I like to term it, where will you be when everything comes to an end? And it really goes to show, like, the general scene is great. I really, really like that.
Yeah, where they find him in there, or are you talking about the one previous, or you're talking about the end, towards the end?
Well, when he's burying his orderly at the end of the film.
Oh, well, yeah, it's towards the yep.
And the guy in the desert, and he's like, "Don't worry about me, I'm fine," and I really like that. And obviously, you have the other general who's kind of more a piece of shit,
Pussy.
high command guy.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's just such a good contrast. And not to say that the Italians didn't have bad generals. They had fucking horrible generals, especially in Africa. But they did have good ones, especially some of the divisional leaders and stuff.
Most of them killed or overrode. But hey.
Yeah. But it was a nice, interesting contrast to like, Stalingrad, where it's just like, no, put down that Coca-Cola, rah, rah, rah. It's all the stupid shit. But like, I just really like that. I thought it was really cool, but just, again, this idea, just like, where will you be when everything comes to an end? And
well, I don't understand why the fuck those 3 didn't just go with the fucking Brits in the cemetery.
Pride.
Yeah, I know that, but like, then they're all dead.
The sergeant had already escaped the Brits once. The kid was just so invested into them, and the lieutenant he was too old.
He gave up. Anyway. He was fucking.
Well,
gone.
remember they're like, what happens? You just your nose gets really thin, and then you just don't hear anything. And that's
right.
What happens.
He was checked out, but like the sergeant, like Rizzo, dude, why the fuck didn't he just say, let's just go with them?
Why didn't they just surrender in Stalingrad instead of walking into the...
Okay, yeah, it's true. It's true. It's the same thing.
And it just... And at times of crisis, when it's right here and it's facing you, all you can do is choose your own way out. Like Downfall, when they're having a fucking party and Berlin is collapsing. It's like, what do you do in these real times of stress? And how... I just love the ending, the very end, where it's you hear the bike running and the decision is there.
Yep.
And he's like, we'll wait. And you hear that a lot. Like, we're going to wait for you. And that is, I'm accepting my fate.
Exactly.
I'm going to die here.
And it's like nobody knows what happens to them, which is good. I love endings like that. So.
Yeah. It's just so, it's Stalingrad. We know what happens. It's horrible. But this one is so ambiguous. And in my opinion, because the ending is so good, and it hit me as hard as it did 10 years ago with the music, and they go to the actual monument and all the unknowns.
Yeah.
60 years from 1942 to 2022, right? Plus 19 is about 80.
2002.
That 2002. That old man that was in the end in the memorial could have been the actual soldier, because you have the one back when they pull away, and it's like, well, that's either a son of the sergeant, because they mention he's a father, or that's the actual kid that got away. But just like the unknown graves, we'll never know.
Exactly.
It's such good filmmaking and such a way to tie it together.
It's so good because that was the Italians' fate on a large scale in North Africa. How does this end?
That battle alone, 3 whole divisions just cross it off just cross it off the list. You know,
How do they get back? They don't. You know, the Germans barely made some of their guys get back to Sicily through the grace of, like, I don't know what the fuck God they were praying to, but yeah, but it was like most of the guys in North Africa just got stuck there, and it's like, did they die? Did they become part of the local populace? What happened? Did they make it back? Who knows? And that's why I did like at the end, like you pointed out, like so many unknowns, just all these graves, unknown. Like, you know, a few of the names, but it's like, yeah, North Africa was a complete and utter catastrophe, you know, for everyone involved. Like, nobody got out of that whole shit show unscathed, you know, and it's
it's a very, very, very important forgotten part of the war.
I agree,
You know?
100%.
And it's really where the Allies got the balls to defeat the Germans, and where the Axis started to really slip and lose everything.
And they realized, oh shit, we've overextended.
Yeah,
Because our supply lines cannot physically keep up with what we're aiming to do, and we're getting pushed back, and it's fucked. Yeah.
The seventh lightning campaign in a row didn't work. The first one was okay. The second one kind of did good. The third one hurt. The fourth one, ow. The fifth one, why? Like, you know, we're so far into this. Like, it's just, this is the
And like you said earlier, it was a breeding ground for the Americans getting better and learning, adapting. Had they not, okay, let's do a hypothetical. I usually don't do this, but like, say North Africa never happened. Okay, so you've got all those Italian troops in Italy and on the Eastern Front. Okay, all the British troops are in England, right? They're just waiting. And then the Americans get involved right away. Well, they have no combat experience. Well, we saw how that was in North Africa, right? And in the South Pacific at the same time. The Americans got their asses handed to them. There's no fucking arguing that. They got their fucking asses handed to them on a silver fucking platter, right? But the Americans are adaptable, right? And so had they done the whole invasion like you were talking about, you know, at Calais early on, probably wouldn't have worked that well. Probably would have been a lot more losses. But because of Africa, okay, we figured out how we're fucking up, how they fight, and now we can take all of what we learned and adapt that. Okay, we're going to Sicily, tough fight. Italy, even tougher. But now we're in Europe, and now we're adapting and all that shit. And it's like, yeah.
Without a Kasserine pass, they never would have been a Falaise pocket. That's the easiest way to put it. Without a huge stumbling block in North Africa, then we never would have had the tactical ability to do what we did in the ETO. You know,
right.
It just, if we had done the operation in the spring and fall of 42, then it would have been a really bad version and an extended version of Dieppe.
Yes.
To give a 1942 standard.
Agreed.
You know, every single invasion that the Allies took part in for the whole war, we fucked up. But we just made it work by about 51%. Yep. There's no perfect amphibious invasion. And that was the one good thing that, you know, we had Torch, and we had Sicily,
right.
and
That's
we
what
had
I mean.
Salerno, and we had Guadalcanal, and we had Munda. And, you know, like a lot of the crews that were in the Pacific also went to Europe. People don't realize that. You know, like,
yeah,
you
they
could
definitely
ship
did.
ships across the world. So we had that slow gaining of amphibious experience. And, you know, one of the toughest things to do is to put troops onto a ship and take troops off to a ship. Now shoot at them. Yep. So, like, you know, it's incredibly hard.
And if North Africa would have not been a factor at all in the Second World War, the Americans would be slugging it out in the South Pacific, yes. But I don't know, like I don't think it would have opened up the Western Front as another way to divert German troops as well as it ended up being. I don't think that would have been possible if North Africa, the Italians, the Germans, the Vichy French, the Brits, the Australians, you know, the Commonwealth, we'll just say troops in general, fighting there. They learned so much in Africa. And I think that's a massive factor in what turned the tide on the Western Front later on in the war. But like you said, Africa is completely forgotten about.
Oh, and even that, the really important parts of the campaign are really forgotten about. I just read this great book that only talks about North Africa and AMTO, talk about how the 30s West Point classes and how the early
Yep.
war Army doctrine was basically destroyed in the early conflicts of fighting the Germans and the French and everything. But, fighting the French was not a pushover. There were whole regiments that got fucking destroyed and had to surrender to French units in the first 3 days
Correct.
of the invasion. At
Correct.
Iran, especially, like armored units and other ones.
Yep.
Like some of the second armored guys had really hard fights, like against French tanks. So it's very, 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 very important. And like I said, there would have been no Falaise Pocket without a Kasserine Pass. Just
Yep.
impossible.
Yeah, and
You
it's
need that stumbling block.
and there's nothing really made about, like, it's alluded to, I guess, in Patton a little bit, but there's really no films or anything that really delve into North Africa, and this film did, and it was very intimate because you get to know the people who were there. They were a line infantry unit. They were one of the better known units, but they were getting their asses kicked, and that's how everybody felt in North Africa. From what I've read, like even the Allies were like, "We got our shit shoved in." It just, nobody won that. It was just fucked, the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, okay, they're out of Africa. Let's go up north. And then it's over. And like, that's why I'm glad this film actually, from the Italian perspective, because like you said, they were very prevalent in North Africa. And that's what I think led to the ultimate results of like it's Italy, like just going, hey, we're fucking done. Stalingrad was one thing, but they didn't have as many troops there.
This is the real big crack for Mussolini that occurs. And basically in July of 43, when troops arrive at Sicily, whoop, he's out, he's gone. So this is really the beginning of the end. Just as in after Stalingrad falls, people for the first time ever in Germany, Nazi Germany, start, yelling at Hitler and blaming the government for these failures. So, it's the real big beginning. And yeah, the Italians did have like a few of the Alpini divisions to the northwest of Stalingrad. And those guys had a horrible time too. They fucking literally walked across the steppe. Some of them walked from the Volga to fucking Kharkov. Look at that on a map. And then they had to walk even further because by that time the Russians had another offensive. Like, It's just insane.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to be is an Italian soldier in World War II.
Yo,
Like,
you
fuck
don't
that.
win. You have literally the best looking uniform out of anybody. Yes, including the Germans. Yes. This was the arid, like the tropical uniform. You should see their fucking wool uniforms. Fucking stellar.
And everyone's a general because everyone has a fucking star for some reason. I don't understand any of their ranks.
That's the Italian, like the esercito, the army, like that's their thing. Like it's a star, right?
Everyone has a fucking star.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, but they had the best goddamn looking uniforms of World War II, the most comfortable and effective, in my opinion, combat helmet, the M33, which in this film was shown
is a hot helmet.
Oh my God. I was fucking, and it's funny because like there's a few scenes towards the end where they were like just throwing their shit down. And I'm like, I know that sound, and that was actually an M33 because it's the exact fucking sound they make when they hit the ground. Fucking amazing helmets. And in this film, they actually had the correct helmets. The blue leather chin strap. They were just painted different colors.
They had a good color too. Not that bad for Italian army green. It was a little light, but it was okay.
What do you mean?
The helmet color. Because some of the guys had tan, some of the guys had green.
Yeah, well,
the
green was actually a literal like seafoam green. Mm-hmm. Their helmets were, but they also vary because of the factories and whatever they're making.
It's like a little darker shade from the Soviet green.
No, it was actually totally different. It's literally like a teal almost. It's like a seafoam. I don't know how to fuck to describe. It's a weird color that they actually were. And then guys would paint them and shit, but like. They were they actually got the colors right in this film, like, which is fucking insane. Because you never see Italian helmets. And a lot of times they would have like their branch insignia like stenciled on the front, but it wasn't necessary, like didn't happen all the time. And then, so the Bersaglieri, the mountain troops with the feather, you saw that in the film, right? Yep. They still wear those fucking things. Mm. In Afghanistan, they wear them and all that shit. And it's like this traditional thing of the mountain troops to wear this fucking feather plume on the right side of their fucking helmets. awesome that they put it in there with the sun caps and everything. So,
Very cool.
yep, they still wear 'em.
You got a fucking an ostrich on your head, dude.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I forgot what kind of bird it is. It's a very specific kind of bird, but like, yeah.
Well, on that note, jump into
IMFDB.
sticker trivia quick.
Oh,
And then we can jump into sticker trivia or into IMFTV. So yes, the desert fox, also known as Erwin Rommel, is well known for his cunning generalship in North Africa. But after Tunisia, which front was he sent to? First person to send the name of the theater that he was sent to after North Africa will get a sticker. So yes, IMFDB, The Line of Fire.
the 1934.
Beretta 1934. Love these.
They are very unique in their sense. Beretta Mile 38.
Love them.
Super
One of the
cool.
best submachine guns of the Second World War.
Yeah.
I'd say that is the best way of the war.
I'd say the MP34 is besides the Papa Shot. Like the MP34 was better than.
Are you
this
talking
one.
about the MP31?
34?
The German MP34.
Yes,
Do you think is better than the M31?
It's better made.
the KP31, the Suomi.
I think the Swoomi's the best.
I think the MP34 is the best made and most reliable.
Look, I love an MP34. I absolutely love it. I
Yeah.
think it's the Cadillac of subs,
Yes,
but it's expensive as fuck to make. So I look at that.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too heavy too.
Yep.
But it's a great gun. It is the best made submachine gun of the 30s and
But yeah,
early
the
war
Italian,
period,
the
for sure.
Beretta Model 38, fucking awesome submachine gun.
Mm-hmm.
40 rounds ready to go.
Yep.
14 ways to hold it.
You know,
Fucking it works.
speaking on that, just real quick, have you ever seen a 4957, Mike? The Yugoslavian subs.
I've seen them. I haven't handled it.
It really is a combination of the Beretta and the Beretta 38 and the PPSH 41.
Nice.
It's literally like if you took two of them and smashed them together. Like that's
Yeah.
literally what it, because the safety mechanism, like everything is off the Beretta, the tube in the back, the fucking bolt, but if you think about the PPSH kind of look and frame and its simplicity in its design, it's like that.
Yeah, no, it looks like a bastardized 43. I know that, but like
Yeah.
it's yeah.
MP40
The MP40,
showed like
oof.
one scene, and it's definitely a dummy.
Yeah. You're all going to die.
Yep.
The Thompsons 28.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thompson, yeah.
Sten MK2. Yep.
Very, 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 very rare in the desert due to ammunition reasons. But they did have Sten Mark IIs in Egypt. But they're like so rare. I think they're only used by the SAS or some of the LRDGs. But yeah, that's kind of neat to see. But they're incredibly rare for this campaign. It was mostly Thompsons.
Carcano M1891. And that's a World War One version of
Well,
that, right?
it would have been a 41.
No, they used 91s through the 50s. Yeah, that was actually a 90 when I was looking at it, and you can tell by the rear sights. That's why I said he switched from that to a 9138, which we'll get to in a bit.
I love
Yep.
I'd love to see the
9138.
Carcanos in this movie. It made me want to play with mine.
I could play with one of my 10 or so. They're very fucking underrated rifles.
I got some nice carbines. They're like potato chips. They really are. They're
Yeah.
still kind of cheap. They're expensive, but they're still kind of cheap.
They're getting a lot more expensive.
getting a lot, yeah.
The 9138, yeah, and those are favorite because they're just obviously shorter and lighter. And so yeah, if he picked it up in favor of his 91, I get that, and so that's why I was like, yeah, it was a continuity error, but was it? Like, who knows?
9138 Cavalry carbine with the folding bayonet to give people an idea.
Yep,
Yeah, I just love them.
very fucking common through both world wars.
Lee Enfield #1 Mark
SMLE.
III.
Yeah, #1 Mark III star. Yep. So
K98.
Yeah, so I did notice that. I don't think they had blanks for some of the Carcanos because at points they were shooting Candy 8s.
yeah, they must have just had a.
And they were switching, and they did an okay job at it. But I did notice it at points
Yep.
because I at one point I saw the end of it, and I'm like, that's a Mauser fucking front barrel band.
Yep.
It's like once you've seen one stamped barrel band, you've seen a million of them.
The Breda Model 30.
I love seeing this because I thought that was a 34 the first shot, and I was like, oh, okay, that's how they got around it. But no, they actually had it. It's just he never reloads because it's a propane gun.
It's a 20-round fucking charger that we were talking about.
Those shots, dude, he was firing like 60 rounds.
I know. And I'm like, come on, man.
I'm just glad it was there, and it's not an MG42. You know?
True.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's like the amount of Italian. This is the most correct movie for Italian firearms.
It is, yeah. It's pretty damn good. The rate of fire was exceptionally fast.
Oh yeah, you can give a shit for that.
Yeah. Oh, the MG42.
Oh, speaking of, yeah.
Is this in every fucking World War II movie ever?
They did make it to Tobruk, so this is not wrong. But is the early models though that made it with the horizontal charging handle and everything,
which they don't have here. It's vertical.
The really bad one that like fucking made the guns unusable.
I gotta work on that.
The 80 millimeter, yeah.
Yep. German mortar.
The mortar, yes.
Which was kind of Farby the way they used it, but it's okay.
Well, if that's the only one they had, though, they wouldn't want to risk it to be damaged, and
But they were so close.
I know, yeah. It's...
It was so close.
Yep. What the fuck is that? Oh, it's the machine gun carrier.
That's the lower.
Yep.
That's the lower half of like a Crusader or something. That's actually not that wrong.
No,
it's probably some husk of a tank that doesn't work anymore. Everything else is wrong though. The 113 is in the
French
fucking,
AMX MKF3 self-propelled gun was introduced only in the 1960s.
Yeah.
The M48 Patton.
Yep.
Yeah, I noticed. But they did such a good job of trying to not show it was post-war though. So I got to give them a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, because like other movies just show them. So
I expected giant roundel with a guy with a top hat on the top and fucking noon time. Okay, chaps, where's my bulldog? Like no.
So this one, they could have definitely, and they did do this. They used American shit. Like go down to the half track, the M5.
International Harvester half tracks, yeah.
They definitely use those, so it's not totally inaccurate. It's just lazy at this point, but it's fine.
Well, it's like the 1960s Rapid Patrol deck.
Yes,
American half tracks.
Yep,
it's kind of an homage.
Yeah, they got a couple of them. They used them, yes, but they were also gasoline and they mostly burned diesel, so whatever. But not totally out of the picture as far as accuracy, but also again lazy. So the 113,
the 113.
No.
Yeah, that's the most atrocious, but they did keep it far away.
They did.
And again, they did a very good job at concealing what was clearly wrong.
Yep.
They cared, and it shows.
Yes.
So
yeah.
A for effort for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, not bad at all.
Being someone that's a real vehicle snob too. Like they did a very good job.
Yep, they camouflage it. Because the M48, I was like, it's not correct, but it was also like for a split second in a couple scenes, and I'm like, okay, you tried to cover it up because it's at night. Yeah, like you said. So
they used it for what they were. They were tanks and armored vehicles, and they wanted tanks and armored vehicles. So here they are. Hey, the only part of that fucking thing is the gun on the tracks, and what do you see? The gun on the tracks. So
yeah, exactly. And we're one of the our breed, not a huge percentage of the population.
Nope.
That's actually going to notice that. Again, the effect comes through. It's a tank. It's got tracks, a turret, and a gun. And bam, it does that. So, yep.
I think that we've arrived at final thoughts. So who wants to go first?
Why don't you go first, Brian? You haven't gone first in fucking months.
Oh, God. It's a very interesting movie. Italian Stalingrad in a lot of ways, the original battle, and no, it's really well done. Like I mentioned earlier, I got a lot of Platoon vibes from it this time. And thinking about it as we were talking about it, I really do see this as an Italian version of Platoon. You know, new kid thrust into a really bad, situation as a volunteer. Didn't have to be there. Everyone's mad at him for being there. Nobody wants to be there. The only difference is that in Platoon you get to go home. North Africa, you become a corpse. So, well, don't pass go. Do not collect $200. But no, it's an amazing movie. It's more of an emotion than a film, I think. It's shot really well. It's cast really well. It's delivered really well. It's got a really awesome soundtrack. I just really like it. At times it reminded me of Canal in a good way, and also Fire Was on the Plane. Just people in desperate situations trying to pick your exit. Where is the dignity in your way out? And I find a lot of respect in the way that they approach that question. So that being said, I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's a really great movie. It's totally worth a watch. And it's the best Italian front movie from the Second World War. And I don't think that will ever be beat. So it's awesome. Definitely see it.
Yeah, I agree. It did have a lot of vibes of other films, but it also did it in its own way, which I respect the fuck out of. Yeah, again, like I've said, I'll just reiterate it one more time, is North Africa is never covered, especially the Italians are never covered. And I like the fact that they did it in a very respectful way and is a real way. And it showed the human part of it, the human suffering, the bullshit of these guys that were in North Africa all over. And you're on your own. That's it. Like, there are no reinforcements. There is no water coming. When you're in a position where you're fantasizing about getting fresh water, you're not in a good spot, right? I'll just throw that out there. And that's what this film shows. And these guys are not in a good spot, and it portrays it very well. The vehicles are awesome. The sets were fantastic. The way it was shot, I didn't have a problem with that at all. The acting was not bad at all either. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was overdone. I didn't think it was underdone. I think it was just right. And the scenarios, yeah, they're fucked up, and that's how it was for them. So, yeah, all things considered, I'm going to give this one an 8.6. Very high score because, yeah, I definitely recommend watching this too. It's boring at times. It's like, holy shit at times. There's a few things lacking, but that's way overshadowed by the things this film did right. So that's my score. Nate?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been quiet tonight just because you guys know a lot more of the history about it and the uniforms and stuff like that. So I just kind of let you guys, well, more than me. How about that?
Okay. Yeah.
I just have been kind of quiet listening.
I couldn't tell an Italian private from a fucking general.
Right, right.
Learn more.
No.
Oh, sorry, he's got the beige star on.
It's where he has it on his uniform, penis.
Oh. Shoot the guy. I don't fucking know. He doesn't.
It's tough. I'll give you that. It's fucking tough. Yeah.
I'm from Brooklyn. He doesn't speak English. I get rid of the problem. Anyway.
You're the closest to any of us to them, okay? Like, shut up.
Listen.
After we're done with the pod, I'm going to tell you a funny story about how I learned how to figure out Italian rank when I was in Iraq. So
all I say is this: one of my favorite quotes from the war comes from a guy who carried a Thompson from Brooklyn, and he goes, "The master key of the war is a fucking 3 rounds from a Thompson. You getting anything?" So anyway, safe, a door, a person, 3 rounds of a Thompson, good to go. So, it's a problem solver. Sorry,
good old 45.
My GAT 40 problem solver.
So I mean, I guess to speak of it as like a film guy, I don't think the story drags. I mean, I think it drags, but the subject matter is interesting enough not to have the story be the point that's dragging it out. Like, the subject matter makes it keep going. Being in Italian is really awesome. Having the sets, the desert, the practical effects. Even if it's propane torches out of a machine gun, I still like it enough to be like, okay. I liked the characters. Nothing screamed cheesy or tropey. It was unique enough. It was artistic enough in its delivery. It had some unique shots. It had some unique editing choices with sound and camera angles and following. And it doesn't have a ton of combat. It reminds me of more of following the characters in a situation kind of film than a giant blockbuster spectacle. I think it is a very well done movie. However, it does have some flaws, which we've talked about, and some things that, it's not going to hinder. It's not going to bring it down to a fucking, I get to use the new trope now, a tunnel rat level, But we've been waterboarded by some horrendous movies lately, and so it's been nice to have a nice breather in I guess, a film that is, I think, probably the only and will be the only film about the subject for a very long time, unfortunately. And I think, to reiterate what I said before, I think North Africa as a whole needs to be really kind of looked at and brought back to a current modern cinema thing. I really do. Because, unfortunately, I'm going to say out loud, 22 years ago at this point is old, unfortunately. We need to have something brought up a little bit more to the modern time. So I'd love to see that, hopefully, in the future. That being said, all in all, I liked it. I enjoyed it. I think I want to watch it again. Not so rushed, because today I was hitting deadlines. But I think I'm going to do the Mike B approach. I'm going to give it a decimal here. I'm going to give it a 8.9 Screaming Mel Gibsons out of 10.
Nice.
There's just a few things that pulled it down for me, and a few things that are annoying. Probably Europeans with guns that mainly makes me the most cringy.
Yes.
But other than that, it holds up pretty high in my book for what it is, and I was very happy to dedicate my time to watching it tonight. Did not make me want to hate fuck something like tunnel rats. That was so brutal.
That was fucking bad.
See, it's fresh for me because I had to edit it recently, and it's and then I had to listen to it. It's actually one of the ones I've actually re-listened to a lot recently because it was so bad for us to review. The jokes that we make are so funny to me. So it's I keep fucking listening to it, and it's just oh god, this biblical piece of shit. God damn, Ugh.
Putting all the scores into the computer that will tell us if Mussolini will have a victory parade in the streets of Alexandria.
Or if he'll just hang in there.
With his horse.
Yes, yep. Well, he might have to get a new horse, though. We get a score of 9 out of 10.
Nice.
So watch this movie.
Yep, definitely
Get
recommend.
off your couch. Go leave work right now. Go home. It's on YouTube. And go watch it. It's fucking awesome.
How was
It's
Mussolini executed?
Oh, you don't want to know.
Wasn't he hanged?
He was hanged and dismembered. We'll just put it that way.
Him and his mistress
Yes.
hung by piano wire upside down.
Him and his mistress, they were dismembered. I knew that, but he was hanged.
They were hung by piano wire and they were slowly
Okay, so my joke did
mutilated.
land. Okay, all right, got it.
The way that they die is the reason Hitler killed himself. So
Yeah. It was
Hitler found out that all the photos of Mussolini getting strung up were released around the world, and he was like, "Burn me," and so they did.
Yeah.
So that's how violent and vicious it was.
They strung him up, mutilated him and his mistress, and then they dragged them through the streets in a celebratory fashion.
He surrendered to the resistance that morning, and it was a rogue resistance band intercepted the resistance band he surrendered to and decided to execute him. They weren't going to do it, but this other band decided to do it because they did it along the siding of a road.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I remember it was very
nasty,
impromptu, very fast, from what I remember.
Nasty.
Yeah,
Yep.
and nasty.
And they photographed it.
Yeah, and photographed it, and then plastered all over the world. Yeah,
Yep.
that's why Stalin has Hitler's skull in a basement.
Oh,
somewhere.
it's like when Gaddafi got caught.
Oh, Gaddafi? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
bayonet up
saying.
his ass. That was yeah.
Oh, I heard it was a tire iron. but
No, it was a
yes.
bayonet. It was
Ah.
something fucking
Well, they
Is-
found I was at a fast food place called Dutch's. Anyone from England will know what I'm talking about. Having lunch when CNN comes on with a exclusive bulletin, and they're pulling Gaddafi out of a sewage pipe out of the ground. They're like, "Look, we found him," and it's like that whole experience. And then thus the term Gaddafi came out. So it kind of ruined my lunch. I was like, "Oh, I guess I won't go to the claw machine now." But you know.
Oof. Big oof.
Whoops. But
Yeah.
anyway, well,
Kind of a trend for fucking Middle Eastern dictators be pulled out of a hole somewhere. So
is that good water from Al Dad? Don't let them steal it from you. Catch you guys next week.
those Italian guys had a lot of merkins on them, but you know.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a rating. Otherwise, Mel Gibson won't stop screaming. If you like this content, make sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. If you want to directly support our work, make sure to check out our Patreon. All these links are in the description below. Until the next time, Scuttlebutt out.